Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the next edition of the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. We are today going to be looking at Palace's upcoming fixture against Newcastle United, taking place at Selhurst Park tomorrow afternoon. And to help me muse on all things Palace Newcastle is Dan Tanner. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing all right, Alex. It's been a long week, and now after the Villa disappointment of going ahead and then conceding, then going ahead and then conceding again and only getting a draw, I want to get back to the Prem and get a nice good result just to get us into a nice December fixture list, which I think we're going over earlier. We're going to go over in a little while.
Yeah, so you mentioned Villa already, so that it doesn't get much easier, unfortunately, for us over the next few weeks. And like you said, we're going to be diving into that topic, probably, unfortunately, considering how things are at the moment. But yeah, we will be looking at that later in the pod. But to start, Oliver Glasner was out in front of the press earlier today, looking ahead to the Newcastle fixture. And I just wanted to ask you, Dan, about a couple of things that our gaffer mentioned to the media today. One of the first things that came up was about two of our main players, Eberechi Eze and Nketiah, who've obviously been out for the last couple of games with injuries. He said they are expected to be back earlier than planned, but he also said he needed to manage their minutes. So what do you take from that? Do you think they'll start on Saturday, or do you think it's a bit too soon?
I don't expect Nketiah to start. I think Eze probably a bit more likely, but still I would probably lean on the 50-50 chance because he's been out a little bit longer and it was a little bit more of a severe injury. I can't remember what it was now, but it's a little bit more severe than Nketiah's slightly dodgy hamstring that he conveniently pulled before the international break. But it'd probably be probably about the 55 minutes, 60 before, if Nketiah starts, Eze starts, they'll probably switch them out for each other, probably at the 50, 60 minute mark, depending on how it's going. Because I know if we're kind of losing to Newcastle, or if it's only 1-0 with 20 minutes to go, I think even Glasner's probably going to have in the back of his mind, I think we're going to need to keep Eze on a little bit longer because he is one of our sort of more dynamic attacking players. And I don't see Nketiah either moving the ball that freely as well. And Sarr has been doing all right, but he's more of a straight line pace merchant, more than sort of a little bit trickier. And Eze's got that rocket of a boot of his when he needs to. So a bit more of a threat up front. But if I was a manager, it would very much be, probably the 50-60 minute mark. We won't push him unless we absolutely have to. But this is all hypothetical. So this is if everything goes our way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you said about the difference there between Eze and Sarr and what they offer, I think, is interesting considering Newcastle, they are quite a defensive team and they've got a very solid backline. And if you're considering either of those to play, you'd probably start Eze just for his ability to create and unlock. And like you say, he's got a hell of a shot on him that can provide a winner in any situation. So you'd think if Eze was fit, he would start ahead of Sarr. That would be the obvious swap at this point. Nketiah is an interesting one. I think even when he's fully fit, I'm not sure if he gets back into the team straight away because his form wasn't great before the injury. Hopefully a bit of time out has helped him to recoup and rediscover some form. So when he comes back, he'll be all guns blazing, hopefully. Another thing I wanted to ask you, Dan, talking of players coming in or staying in and some maybe coming out. Glasner also praised the hardworking and determined Ez and Devenny in his press conference. Obviously, he's the 21-year-old midfielder who started the last two games and scored at Villa Park on Saturday. Do you think Deveni deserves to start, Dan, on Saturday, given his form?
I probably think he deserves to start. If he actually does, is a different question because he is still, I think it'd be his third professional sort of top level appearance. And Newcastle isn't exactly the easiest one to get a sort of unlock that midfield. But against Villa, he did really well. He got a very classy finish. Like that was a professional. Like he's been doing that for 15 years or something. So he's got the talent and he's got the opportunity to go far in Palace, as we have a great habit of encouraging sort of youth players and academy graduates through the system. They may not always make the first team, but we definitely try and at least give them the opportunity, unlike some teams in the Premiership. But if he stays the way he's going, and then we get Wharton back, I think he's after Christmas probably, if we can actually somehow manage to keep him, because from what I've been reading, there are a couple of vultures circling that might want to try and pick him up in January. So, but if we can keep those two going, I think we have a quite good young sort of talented sort of central midfielder, is what I've kind of been going on about for the last couple of months. Of our midfield is not that creative, especially when we're having to play sort of two defensive midfielders all the time. But if we can get those two in a little bit more urgency, a little bit more sort of youth, and just that willingness to try anything really. So, as I said earlier, probably should deserve a start, but I don't really see it happening. Being sort of the pragmatic, we want to try and get results first. He might come on, say the 20 minutes from time, part of those the last substitutes, just to try and get some experience or open up any defence that's there. But yeah, that's my kind of thoughts on it. He should start. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on when the team sheet comes out. Obviously, we've got Decore back now as well, who's gradually come back to fitness. And you think when he and Wharton in particular are fit, they would be our starting midfield duo. And then obviously when Ez and Nketiah come back, the places become a lot harder to challenge for. And I think that will maybe hinder Deveni a little bit. But I think from what he's shown, he'll be around the first team, no doubt, whether it's on the bench or in a starting spot. And it's great to see. So hopefully he can have some impact, whether that's starting or from the bench against Newcastle tomorrow. We're going to take a quick break there, and we're going to talk about our dicey looking fixture list coming up in the first part of December after this break. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast. I'm joined today by Dan Tanner. We're now going to look at some of the fixtures coming up for Crystal Palace. We obviously have complete November with Newcastle at home tomorrow. Then we travel to Ipswich away on Tuesday. After that, we've got Man City at home, and then it's Brighton away, and then double header against Arsenal before Christmas. One at the Emirates in the Cup, one at home in the Premier League. Not the easiest run of games, Dan. How do you think things will pan out for us over the next couple of weeks? Glasner said also in his presser that he wasn't happy with being 19th, and you said before we started recording that who would be happy with 19th, which you're absolutely right.
I'm not happy with 19th. I want to be closer to like 15th, maybe even like top 10 where Newcastle are. That's what I would be happy with.
Yeah, I don't know what the Austrian-German phrase is for like stating the obvious, but that's what we should have told Glasner.
No.
Just 9, not 19th. But what do you think about this run of games? Do you think we will be better off by Christmas, or do you think we'll still be hovering in the relegation zone?
I think we'll be struggling, actually. I've been dreading this since I saw the team sheet a couple of weeks ago, and it's just like, this is going to be nasty. But we get this every year. For some reason, we either have a really horrible December or a really bad October where we play 3 or 4 of the top 6 back to back, and then we have the same problem at the back end of the season where we somehow manage to determine the title because they all suddenly come in and then they realise, it's Palace, but we're on the upswing for some weird reason. But it's just nasty as always. It's Ipswich, we should be all right, but they're doing surprisingly well for a team that's sort of kind of put together very quickly and on a very, very shoestring budget compared to everyone else. But then we got City, which they're not having the greatest time at the moment, but they're still City. It's only a matter of time, and we're probably going to be the punching bag. Or we go over there and we get a Townsend moment and we beat them. It's always weird when it comes to City, and then we get the Derby game, which is going to be fun. The first Derby game of the season. Brighton are doing well. They've been punching above their weight the last couple of years and slowly knocking on the door of being a little bit more of a title contender, the same way Villa and Newcastle kind of want to be. And then we get a double header with the Arsenal in the Cup and then the league back to back. And this is all before Christmas. A very nasty 3 and a bit week period. So I don't see us. We might be able to get a couple of points, but it's going to be a struggle. We're already on relegation form at the moment. So this coming in December as well is not going to help matters. But we can only look forward to after Christmas when it starts to getting a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, so that run of fixtures just, it's enough to put the fear into any team. But when you're in a position like ours in the relegation zone, it just adds that little bit more of like trepidation. Like, you don't want to be facing these teams all together at the same time. I think arguably as well, like the Ipswich away and the Brighton away are sort of the toughest fixtures. Like at home, we can sort of hold our own against any team. And we showed that against Spurs and Man United this season already. And if City are out of form, we'll fancy a go at them. But yeah, the Brighton away and Ipswich away, I don't know why, but I'd see those and I'm like, I just can't. Yeah, I could see us struggling there. It's a very Palace thing to do, is to go to these places and come away with nothing.
Yeah, before it came out, we were like, these are easy ones. We can get something off of Ipswich, but they've started to get a couple of good results, and Brighton have been slowly getting better over the last couple of years. So knocking on the door of sort of a European spot a bit more. So they're not the easy fixture they used to be either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I would think that cup game against Arsenal at the Emirates, I don't want to see us go all out for that. I know Glasner likes to put a strong team out, but I would sacrifice getting to the semi-final of or not even guaranteed semi-final, trying to get to the semi-final of the cup. I would sacrifice that to have a better Christmas period and try and get some points on the board. What do you think about that?
I'm kind of on the same boat. I still like a cup run because we don't really get cup runs very often. I think I've seen 2 in my lifetime, maybe 3. We want. I want a cup run. So, but when you start thinking with your sort of logically that you kind of just don't want that one either. But I think Arsenal on the same vein don't want that either because they're looking towards to go for a championship, a Champions League, an FA Cup. League Cup, they're not that bothered about it really. For them, it's another cup game, and they've got the squad and the depth to actually be able to do this stuff. But I don't think the top sort of 6 or 7 teams really worry about it too much. So it could come down to which team wants to try and sacrifice it more, which is going to be a very, very weird situation. Who's willing to throw more than the other?
A bit of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
there's self-sabotaging going on in the EFL Cup between two Premier League teams. It's not the first time that's happened, I'm sure. But it's an interesting period for sure. But yeah, just knowing us, like we might come out of it with like 10 to 15 points, or it'll be be like 1 point. But we'll see in a couple of weeks. Right, so stick with us. We're going to have some final thoughts about the Newcastle game after this ad break, and we'll be doing our score predictions as well. This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day. Okay, welcome back to part 3 of the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. So me and Dan are now going to have a final few thoughts about the Newcastle game that takes place tomorrow. The guys analysed this on the crossover pod yesterday in depth, so check that out if you want a detailed preview of the Newcastle game before you head down to Selhurst Park tomorrow. So Dan, I just want to start with your score prediction and just a quick summary of how you think this game will go.
I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Palace. Kind of especially going off the performance of the Villa game, because we were impressive going forward a lot more, and it was a very back and forth game, almost like a game of basketball. It was counter and then counter and so on, and I think we're quite good at doing sort of the counter press and things like that, but it's the finishing product we may have an issue with. But if Mateta's doing all right and can get into the box, and even Sarr can get another sort of free run like he got against a Villa, because it was, as I've said earlier, a bit of a speed merchant. He's quite physical as well, so he's not going to be easily pushed off on a sort of foot race kind of thing. But it's also going to be that on paper, both teams are kind of even. They're sort of both got a lot of Premiership skill, sort of experience, both got a lot of international players, either well-established ones or ones kind of on the fringe, and both of them kind of should be playing around sort of the mid-table positions. But the only real difference is that Newcastle have a very, very dynamic attacking options that we kind of are lacking. And we're also kind of our Achilles heel is kind of this through ball, either down the on the full-back positions or even straight down the middle, which we kind of need to negate that as much as possible, and sort of kind of close Newcastle players down, as they are a kind of very physical but very pacey team. So if we can do that, I think we can probably get away with a 2-1, but it's going to be probably in the first minute and the last minute where the goals go in, because this is the Premiership this season. They don't happen at normal times in the sort of the middle bit. It's first 5 minutes and 5 minutes into extra time after this new system that, we're going to be right, new system, right, we're now going to play for an extra 7 or 8 minutes and keep going until the referee says otherwise.
Yeah, I think with that like extra time thing as well, I think this could be a bit of a scrappy occasion as well. Like Newcastle love to get a tackle in, and just quite a solid team really. Like they don't take any prisoners, so I think there could be a bit of added time coming in this one. I think my prediction, I'm going to join you actually with a 2-1. I think there are goals in this game. That Newcastle attack, and we just make so many mistakes. And I can just see, Isak, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, such good players. They'll just punish us, and I think Newcastle probably will score tomorrow. But I can see us being up for this one, especially how badly we played against Fulham in our last home game. We'll have something to prove. to the home support, which I think will work in our favour massively. And of course, Newcastle come off the back of a bit of a humbling defeat to West Ham on Monday, which I don't know whether that will work in our favour or not. They might be trying to turn things around during the week to overcome that. But I think it'll be a very close contest. And to be honest, I just hope we come away with something. We can't be losing any more games at home or anywhere for that matter. And we need points desperately. So I'll join you with a 2-1, but I would also be happy with a 1-1 draw at Selhurst. Another point on the board. Keeping in it.
Come away with a point minimum requirement, but we want the 3.
Yeah, 3 would be ideal. That would make the perfect weekend for me, especially. But yeah, that's been us today. That's the Daily Palace podcast. Make sure you give us a follow and 5 stars wherever you listen, because it helps us obviously to get found and to get noticed, which is what we're after at the moment. I just want to say a massive thank you to Dan Tanner for joining me today. Thanks, Dan.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
Good stuff. Okay, and catch you next week for some more Palace-related chat, hopefully after a victory.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.